Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central, and we're doing another episode of Guns N' Roses True Story. Now, I had previously done an episode on Axl's first band in LA, Rapid Fire, and I was really glad to hear that some people didn't know the story, so it was something new, and some people requested do Hollywood Rose. So this episode we're talking about Hollywood Rose, and if you guys want to watch the Rapid Fire episode, it's available on my channel, and I've linked to it down below. But let's talk about Hollywood Rose and how it really set the foundation for the formation of Guns N' Roses. So let's go back to 1983. So former member Chris Webber was actually introduced to Izzy Stradlin in the parking lot of the Rainbow Bar and Grill by friend Tracy Guns. And Tracy Guns at that time was basically leading the first incarnation of LA Guns at that time. And this meeting happened after Chris Webber was interested in forming a band. So soon afterwards, when after Webber and Stradlin met, they started writing material, and at the suggestion of Izzy, they recruited his childhood friend Axl Rose, who had been playing in the band Rapid Fire previously. So Axl came into the band, and he suggested that they call the band Axl, with Rose adopting Axl as his first name. So they played their first gig at the Orphanage in North Hollywood and played a few more shows before changing their name to Rose. The group then finally changed their name to Hollywood Rose when Webber discovered that the name Rose was already being used by a New York band at the time. So during the group's live shows, they were aided by bassist Rick Mars, Andre Trox, and Steve Darrow, along with drummer Johnny Christ, who remained the only consistent member of the group outside of Rose, Stradlin, and Webber. So, fast forward now to 1984. After borrowing money from Webber's father, the group recorded a 5-song demo in Hollywood. And this happened in 1984. So after playing a number of shows, they appeared at the Music Machine in 1984, and Webber accidentally hit Rose with the headstock of his guitar. Rose stormed off and eventually fired Webber from the band, with former road crew guitarist Slash joining the group. So unhappy at the firing of Webber, Izzy ended up leaving the group when Slash first came to rehearse, going to join the band London. So Slash's road crew mate Steven Adler also replaced drummer Christ during this time. The group continued to play more shows before eventually disbanding before their final show at the Troubadour in 1984. After this time, Axl went on to front LA Guns while Slash auditioned for Poison at the suggestion of former guitarist Matt Smith. So thankfully, Slash's audition with Poison did not go well, and he never got the actual gig. So this story's been told a number of times over the years, but there was an article back in 2012 where Bret Michaels explained why Slash didn't fit in with Poison. So at the time, he had this to say about Slash. He said, "Slash is one of my all-time favorite guitar players, and I believe he would have steered our sound a little more in the Aerosmith direction. He was basically the same guy he is today. What you see is what you get. It never really had a chance to work out or not. The band decided that CC DeVille was the best choice for us." So back in 2010, Slash revealed in an interview with Classic Rock Revisited that he had been in the pre-GNR band Hollywood Rose and decided to quit. He recalled, "I couldn't handle it anymore and I walked. That was right after the first time Axl and I worked together." Matt, the original guitar player for Poison, who was actually a pretty cool guy, had gotten his wife pregnant, or they were getting married or something like that. He was moving back to Pennsylvania. He goes, "You should try out for Poison." So the guitarist says he wasn't a fan of the band, but back in those days you did what you had to in order to keep playing. Slash revealed that he made it down to the final two, but when he was asked about the makeup and style that went along with the band, he knew it wasn't going to work. He recalled, "As I was walking out of the audition, CC DeVille was walking in. He had on pancake makeup and a ton of hairspray. I actually remember thinking right then, that should be the guy." So shortly afterwards, the group ended up reuniting once again. So Axl Rose was in the band, Stradlin, Webber, and Darrow returned along, while LA Guns drummer Rob Gardner also joined the group. So Webber, who left to move to New York City, was soon replaced by Tracy Guns, and the group changed their name to Guns N' Roses, combining the names of LA Guns and Hollywood Rose, with the lineup consisting of Axl Rose, Tracy Guns, Izzy Stradlin, Ole Bike, and Rob Gardner. Now, Bike was eventually replaced by Duff McKagan, who at that time was formerly of the Fastbacks, the Farts, and 10-Minute Warning and Road Crew. And shortly afterwards, Tracy Guns would eventually leave the group after having a falling out with Axl Rose. Tracy Guns would eventually be replaced by Slash. So Duff went on to book shows taking place between Sacramento and Seattle, in 1985, which was then dubbed the Hell Tour. So during this time, Gardner quit the group and was replaced by Steven Adler, with this lineup being known as the classic lineup of Guns N' Roses. So a number of Hollywood Rose songs were later included on a number of releases by Guns N' Roses, including Anything Goes, which was included on Appetite for Destruction, Reckless Life, and Move to the City, which were both included on Live Like a Suicide and GNR Lies, as well as the song Shadow of Your Love. And in 1998, former guitarist Chris Webber actually sued Axl Rose, claiming that he co-wrote two of the songs he was not credited for, which included Shadow of Your Love and Back Off Bitch. So in 1989, Hollywood Rose was reformed by Chris Webber and signed to Summa Music Group. A full-length album was recorded but was never eventually released. One track from the album, Sweet Little Angel, was subsequently released on the soundtrack to the 1990 film Miami Blues, and a second studio track, Come a Little Closer, with Jimmy Swan on vocals, can be heard on the 4-disc box set Rock and Roll Rebels and the Sunset Strip Volume 1. So fast forward now to 2004, Chris Webber, who was in a band called UPO at the time, sold the 5-song demo from Hollywood Rose that the group had recorded back in 1984 to Cleopatra Records. So Cleopatra Records released the album, which included, along with the original recordings, remixes by former Guns N' Roses guitarist Gilby Clarke, which featured additional guitar overdubs by Tracy Guns, and former London and Cinderella drummer Fred Curry, who filled in for Guns N' Roses drummer Steven Adler for a few shows back in the 80s. And the album that was released, or the 5-song demo that was released by Chris Webber, was called The Roots of Guns N' Roses. And this was released on June 22nd of 2004. So on June 21st, 2004, Axl Rose had actually sought an injunction against the release of the album, suing Cleopatra Records for trademark infringement, violation of rights in his name and likeness, and for unfair competition, probably referring to the fact that Chinese Democracy was supposed to come out in 2004 and that the Greatest Hits album also came out the same year. And at that time, Slash and Duff McKagan were also named as plaintiffs with Rose. However, on July 6th, the United States District Court judge denied the motion of Axl and his former Guns N' Roses members for a preliminary injunction against the independent record label. Webber also, during this time, was interviewed for VH1's Behind the Music documentary covering the early days of Guns N' Roses. So the same year that Chris Webber's album was released, he actually underwent successful brain surgery to remove a tumor. And in 2005, a year following Axl's attempt to stop the release of the Hollywood Rose album, Axl was ordered to pay the label's legal fees in dispute over the early recording. So it was the third time in a year that Cleopatra Records had prevailed in court against Guns N' Roses. And it was revealed on May 23, 2005, that Judge Gary Allen, judge of the United States District Court for the Central District of California, awarded Cleopatra Records' request for attorney fees and costs in the amount of $24,176.38, and that amount be paid by Axl Rose. So in January of 2005, there was actually a Japanese version of the album released by Sony together with a bonus DVD. So the actual release features 15 tracks. There's a total of really only 5 songs. So Killing Time, Anything Goes, Rocker, Shadow of Your Love, and Reckless Life. And what's really interesting is that if you look at the actual writing credits, you'll see a couple songs here with just Chris Webber and Axl Rose. So Killing Time was written by Chris Webber and Axl Rose. Anything Goes is credited to Rose, Izzy, and Webber. Rocker's credited to Webber and Rose. And then Shadow of Your Love is credited as Rose, Stradlin, and Paul Tobias, with Reckless Life being written by Rose and Stradlin. So there was a lot of these songs written before even Slash and Axl had actually gotten together and played together. In 2004, ex-Hollywood Rose guitarist Chris Webber did an interview where he talked a bit about Axl, and he referred to Axl as very ego-motivated. So in the interview with Metal Shrine, he was asked, looking back, what was Axl like back then? You read in the press coverage how strange Axl is, and was he anything like that back then? To which Chris responded, he was really different. He thinks of himself a lot, and he's very ego-motivated. He has an idea of what he wants and goes out and gets it. Not a lot of time is spent selflessly helping others. I don't see him donating blood or that type of thing. He's got an idea of what he wants in life, and he gets it. He was actually a friend of mine, and all that stuff that has happened since then has actually clearly changed him. Certainly the person I knew when I was friends with him wouldn't be considered all these names that people call him. I obviously got out of it at a certain point, and since I parted ways with him, he's changed, which is good because I remember the good sides. He was just like the coolest guy that ever walked the planet. He was the epitome of cool and the style that he generated, and he had an air about him that almost everybody thought was really charismatic. And Chris Webber would actually be interviewed in the documentary Axl Rose, The Prettiest Star, which you guys can go check out on YouTube. Now, back in 2004, when the roots of Guns N' Roses, the Hollywood Rose album, actually had come out, it was billed as like the first ever known recordings featuring Axl Rose, and it wasn't technically true because a little while after it came out, there was a band that Axl had been in prior to Hollywood Rose called Rapid Fire, and one of Axl's bandmates, Kevin Lawrence, was also trying to release his own album, or his own EP, and he went through legal battles with Axl as well, and he did an interview where he was asked, why wait so long to release the EP, and what's been the major hurdle in releasing it? He said, with the Hollywood Rose album claiming to be the first ever Axl Rose recordings, I got a little pissed. I was like, that's not true, that's BS. These are the original recordings, and so I scoured the country for somebody who had an old 8-track reel-to-reel machine that could run it into a computer and digitize it for me, and it took me all over the place. Finally, I found Jack Endino, who was Nirvana's first producer, and he referred me to another guy who had all the equipment. I shipped out the tapes to him, and he digitized it and sent it back. I put up a little website, just one page with a picture, and it just got slammed, and then all of a sudden came the lawyer letters. So that does it for this episode of Guns N' Roses True Story. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts down below, and be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all things related to Guns N' Roses, and if you want to see more videos just like this. And go follow me on social media, guys. The links to my social media channels are down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have yourself a good day.